We'll start now. Recording.
Cool. Okay. Sounds good.
Looks like we have some people joining.
Yeah, hi Brandon, welcome. Oh, Brandon jumped off. You want to have like a welcome slide?
Do you want me to put up the the PowerPoint?
Yeah, let's put out the welcome slide.
Screen share. Figure all of these things out before, oops.
And like I know some of the people, like Brandon, he's from Ventura, so I will just rename him, Nicole. So I'm helping you with renaming.
Thank you, guys.
So are we naming everyone name and city or agency?
Let's do like a, what did we say, Melissa? Agency? City first?
Yeah, I have a note, so I'm going to ask people to do it themselves too. But obviously, if you guys want to get in there and work on that, that is probably expedites things. But yeah, so put the city or the organization first, and then their name.
Oh, when we say organization, do we like say planning department?
No, like I say organization instead of city in case, like, so if it's somebody with the COG or somebody, or if it's like ENA with SGC or something that isn't a city. So that's all I mean. Where's Carly?
You know, we're so used to Zoom. Everyone is joining like literally at 2:00.
Or like 2:01.
Like, wait, how do I log in? Like, no, exactly at 2 p.m. Everyone's like, let's click on the link. And for those who are joining, welcome, folks.
Hi, Christian.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Get people starting to sign on.
Hello, and how people already know to mute themselves. Love it. It's been a while. It's so automatic now.
Right? I always default. And then I try to talk and I'm muted. So,
yeah. Welcome, everyone. I see that people are signing in. This is great. We have interactive agenda planned for you today. Welcome.
Yeah, we're going to try to get started right at 2, but we see people starting to sign on.
Welcome, folks. We're going to go ahead and start in just a moment.
Yeah, actually, while we've got everybody signing in, if you guys want to humor us, we would love if you can drop your name and organization and one word describing how you're feeling into the chat box by way of introductions. We can get this part started. This is something we borrowed from one of our Boost participants, and we really liked how it worked out in that meeting. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat box, that would be great.
I'm like, I was too.
For those of you just signing on, we are just getting started. By way of introductions, we're hoping you can drop your name and organization and one word describing how you're feeling into the chat box for us. Hannah, can you keep an eye and see who we've got going in there?
Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling proactive today. I love it. I'm feeling positive, feeling good. Yay. See, we're engaging you right from the start. It's a session on public engagement. So we're gonna get right to it. And folks, we're also muting you as you're joining. So if you see yourself muted, we did that.
As Hannah mentioned, we do have a pretty packed agenda, so in the interest of time, please continue to introduce yourselves as you jump on if you're just joining us now, but I am going to go ahead and move into some of our logistics and things like that so that we can get things moving. So really quickly, the objectives of today's call is we're hoping that you all can share your experiences and hear from other Boost communities about how they're navigating community engagement in the wake of COVID. We're going to discuss some of the challenges that you all are facing on that front. And then we are hoping to also learn from you about how we can best support you all, both with individual assistance and with future training and peer learning opportunities.
Come on.
Before we get started, here's a few logistical pieces. We are recording this so that we can keep track of all of the questions and chats that come in through the chat box. But please do mute yourself when you're not speaking so we can limit the background noise as much as possible. Feel free to use the chat box to either ask questions or get tech help. We do have a lot to cover today, so we may not get to all of your individual questions. But if you do drop anything in that chat box, we will get back to you and answer your questions offline. A quick Zoom note. So to raise your Zoom hand, you do that under the participants box on your screen if you're on your computer. If you're just joining us via phone, you press *9, and then we will call on you guys as needed for the main piece of this presentation. We're also going to be using breakout groups, so it would be really helpful if you guys can go in and rename yourself, putting your organization, your city, first and then your name so that we can facilitate that distribution into the breakout groups that we're going to do a little bit later today. So just in case you don't know all of us, this is your Boost team. I'm Melissa Keene, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Carly Brown, Nicole Enright, and Hannah Stalmakovich. So to kick us off, just quickly covering why we're here and why this is important. We know so many of you are working on general plan updates, housing element updates, and other activities that require community engagement. And the COVID crisis has definitely changed the way that we can and are doing all of this. So we're hoping to facilitate a conversation amongst you all about the innovative things that you're trying, what's working, what's really going well, what maybe isn't going so great, and what the challenges you're facing, and answer those questions. And then towards the end, Hannah and I are going to share some tips on virtual meeting design and how to get the most out of those types of meetings as you're moving forward with that piece of your community engagement plan. And then we're also going to share a number of resources and additional training opportunities where you can find more information, because there's so much to cover here. We're definitely not going to be able to get to it all in the next hour. So there's definitely other opportunities for you to get information and find resources on these topics. So to get us started, we're going to model one way that you can gather feedback from your community. And I'm realizing I did not put the participant code on there, so let me pull this other screen over. So we're hoping you will participate in this. We're going to do some instant polling. So go to your browser on your smartphone or on your computer and enter sift.ly. And then it will ask you for our participant code. And that code you see on your screen now, it's V927. If you guys have any issues, go ahead and put those in the chat box and we will help you connect on that end. But I am seeing devices starting to connect. So we'll get going on the polling in just a minute.
So if you're on your computer, just pull out your cell phone to participate or open another browser. Cell phones are a little bit easier, so we recommend cell phones. And then we're going to wait for Melissa to activate the questions once most of you are signed in.
Yes, just giving everybody another 30 seconds or so here to open your browser and get connected, and then we'll get going. I'm going to go ahead and launch the first question, but if you're still connecting, don't worry, the participant code will still appear on this next screen as we start. So this one, just to get you guys familiar with the software. So how many cups of coffee have you had today? I'm always amazed at the amount of people that say none. A lot of you guys are not caffeine drinkers, apparently. Perfect. We'll give this just another second for people to keep connecting if they are.
Wow, 41% are saying none. Didn't drink any coffee. That's an interesting group.
I find it impressive. I don't function without coffee in the morning, so perfect. Okay, so the next few questions we're going to go through are related to our topic today. About virtual engagement and what you all are doing in this new environment. So how much participation from your community are you seeing in this new virtual environment? Are you seeing about the same as your engagement activities before COVID, more or less? We've got a good mix here too. Oh, that's interesting. We have an exact split between more than before and less than before. So definitely sometimes the virtual environment is encouraging more people to attend because they don't actually have to physically go to meetings. They can just jump on a Zoom call or participate in their living rooms. But that also definitely on the other side of things exacerbates some of the digital divide issues and the access issues to technology, which could lead to lower engagement. So this is the first time I've actually seen it be a very equal split though. So that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. Next, we're hoping you can tell us what tools you're using. So are you using surveys, just websites, online surveys, paper surveys, digital meetings like this? Go ahead and type those answers into the browser now, and you can type in more than one. So this doesn't have to be just one option. Are you using really high-tech web platforms that host all of this? Are you doing online forums?
So questions start popping up. We see a lot of Zoom, a lot of digital meetings. Mentimeter, that's a new one. Social media, MetroQuest, paper surveys, Google surveys, lots of Zoom. Phone calls, that's old-fashioned style. Surveys, teleconference meetings, Microsoft Forms, Google Forms, social media, digital meetings. Okay, let's see that in the word cloud. Yep, the survey and
So this
Zoom are
highlights
two big.
the most common words you guys are throwing out there. So you see surveys really big, you see Zoom really big. So that shows that a lot of you are using those platforms. You see phone, so phone calls in there. Radio. It's another old school platform, which is great. Nextdoor, other social media platforms. Emails, yeah. Good ways to get information out. Perfect. So what are the top 3 challenges you guys are facing in general with public engagement, or specifically right now? So you can pick your top 3 and then make sure you submit so that they come through and we can see them on the screen. So insufficient staffing and time and funding, that is pretty typical. I think we're all facing a lot of competing priorities right now, especially in this new environment. Just got replaced by need for more effective public engagement tools. And then followed by that, yeah, same time people participating, that's standard both in the virtual environment and in in-person engagement opportunities, followed by residents uninformed on issues and politically extreme participants. So now more explicitly related to the virtual engagement and what we're doing right now, what are you all finding hard about this?
Technology, reaching new audience.
Go ahead, Anna.
Digital fatigue, digital divide, engaging with our disadvantaged population, engaging younger population, reaching audiences, non-accessible to disadvantaged communities, Wi-Fi connectivity, technology misunderstanding, uneducated residents on how to engage in a virtual environment, lack of body language and other physical cues, connectivity, competing messages. So a lot of what you're typing are very similar to your colleagues. Residents not technologically savvy. Yes, we hear that a lot. Too difficult to get a complete array of our residents to participate. Lack of technology. Knowing that we are connecting to full range of demographics in our county. Language barriers. Residents don't have the technology to participate, building trust.
So we're going to cover some of this today, but not all of it. But at the end, we'll definitely share some resources on where you can find more information on some of these issues, like language access, like reaching beyond the usuals, and how do you engage with pieces of your community that may not engage on a regular basis, how to reach them, and then how to bring them into the fold. But this is also really helpful for us. And if you have questions specifically on any of these things, please, again, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and Hannah or I or one of your Boost team members will follow up with you and get you answers to explicit questions as you need as well. So I want to keep things moving, but thank you all for participating in this. So we're going to go ahead and finish this for now. And go back to...
While you're switching slide, a friendly reminder to add a city if you're a Boost community to your name, or organization if you're not a Boost community, for our breakout groups. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes, please go ahead and do that if you haven't already. It'll just help us facilitate the breakdown of the breakout groups so that we can have a good variety of people in each one of those groups. So before we get into the discussion, we're going to hear from a couple of our Boost participants about what they're doing in this space, what they're trying around virtual engagement, and some of their lessons learned. So first up, we have the city of El Centro. So Christian, you want to take it from here?
Hi, good afternoon.
Join. Oh, there we go. Just make
So I work for the city of El Centro. We are currently working on updating our general plan. We are updating our land use element, our circulation element. We're also creating an environmental justice element. Now, throughout this whole process, we were hoping on doing town hall meetings, but as soon as COVID hit, we were kind of all forced to go online and rethink of everything. We've tried out a lot of things. We worked with the Boost group, tried out different ways to get to interact. We ended up settling with Zoom specifically. So we've had several outreaches. Our biggest one was downtown. We were going to present our plan for downtown. Our downtown suffers a lot. We have homeless issues. We have problems keeping businesses in our downtown area, and which we found out that it's pretty similar to many downtown areas in other cities throughout the state. But we really want to focus and, revamp our downtown. So we wanted a lot of input from our downtown business owners, our residents. So what we did is, as part of the general plan update, we targeted specifically business owners and people who are interested in the downtown area and neighboring property owners. We ended up going with Zoom, like I mentioned earlier, to have this meeting. Basically what we did is, along with our consultants, we presented our downtown plan. We had high participation. Some barriers that we have here in the city of El Centro, for those of you that don't know where city of El Centro is, it's where basically southeast corner of the state. We're bordering Mexicali, Mexico, Baja California. So a lot of our, not just residents, but a lot of our workforce, a lot of our people who visit, usually come in from Mexicali. They'll work for the day and then they'll go back down south. Or same thing, a lot of people who do live here on the weekends, they usually go to visit family in Mexicali. So we have a lot of Spanish-speaking population here. I would say definitely at least 80% of our residents speak Spanish. So that was one thing, is all of our meetings that we have to have either an interpreter translating. Luckily, most of our staff speak Spanish. But with Zoom, we found a nifty feature where as soon as you join, you can actually open up an interpretation channel, and we could have someone interpreting in Spanish at the same time that we have the English going. So our viewers can basically select whether they want English, whether they want Spanish. It's the same presentation, the same material. It's just some people are listening to English, some people are listening to Spanish. So that was a big thing for us. We were able to reach out a lot of people. And kind of just some finishing thoughts on, is anybody who's looking to do this kind of engagement for either bilingual presentations, multilingual presentations, or deciding on Zoom, I would definitely recommend doing test runs, dry runs. We did run into technical issues. A couple of people mentioned earlier in the surveys, technology issues, not just with our residents, but us here as staff. We were very new to Zoom. We were new to interpretation at the same time through Zoom. Connectivity issues. So if anybody who's looking to take this route, I would highly recommend you do several test runs, dry runs. That way you can get a feel for the software, the program, how it all works. That way you're not trying to figure it all out right at the meeting and you're wasting, precious, valuable time. Another reason why we went with Zoom is we were able to stream it on Facebook Live. So at the same time, people were listening on Zoom. People who were on Facebook could also listen to our stream live. unfortunately, it doesn't connect to where they can participate through Zoom, but we did have our staff monitor Facebook, and any comments that they had, we had that staff member translate it, or either translate or bring it back to Zoom so we could address the comment, the question, and we can get input from everybody. Zoom does save the recordings. They save basically the chat, and they save a recording of the actual video, so that's very helpful. We were able to go back. But I would definitely recommend, like I said, if you're going to try it out, several test runs, dry runs, that way you can get good.
Great. Thank you, Christian. And that's a very good point. Always do a test run, always have a plan B when possible. We've run into tech issues on our end with internet going down in this new world and things like that. So always think through what can go wrong and try to have backup plans as much as possible. Carly, do we have any kind of clarifying questions for Christian? We can definitely have him speak more in the breakout groups, and you guys can ask questions then. We just want to make sure we don't have any big clarifying questions needed to answer.
We are getting some questions now from Ventura. Derek asks, what other programs did you compare it with?
So we tried out Zoom, we tried out Uber calls, Uber conference, we tried out Skype, and there was another one we also tried, but for us, it didn't necessarily work for what we were trying to. And I think at the same time, we also we had time constraint where our meetings had to be done and we were just short time, and staff had we had, I guess, an easier time learning Zoom. It's just, I guess, easier to understand. It's more intuitive. So we figured if we were able to pick it up faster than other programs, we would also think that our residents would also pick it up a little bit faster. But at the same time, no matter what service you end up going with, I would also recommend is that at the beginning of the presentation, just a quick little slide on, this is how you mute yourself, this is how you participate in our surveys, this is how you go into the Spanish interpretation, this is how you do X, Y, and Z. That way, once we do ask for input, we can let them know, hey, you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and they can easily do it without struggling.
Great, thank you. We are going to go ahead and move to the next presentation, but if there's additional questions for Christian or on the meeting platform determinations, we will get to this a little bit later, and we're also happy to answer questions both in the breakout groups and offline about choosing the right platform for your needs. Next up, we have the City of Bakersfield. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Cecilia.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, we are a Boost community, and one of the things, one of the priorities that we put in our initial MLU was to really help revitalize one of our historic disadvantaged areas, predominantly African American. They've really, as you can see, I have Arlena Waller here. She's also going to be speaking. She's one of our key community partners. And they really have stepped up as far as wanting to engage in the city, wanting to improve their community, wanting clear action items. So I really thought it was important to include through our Boost program any kind of assistance or effort we can do to help. And one of the things that came up was the STEP grant through CARB. It's the transportation focused one. So when they shared that with me, I immediately shared it with Arlena and her organization. They call themselves the MLK Community with the U capitalized initiative. They've already, one of the things that they've done already, and Arlena can speak to this, they really started educating themselves. Arlena was really a strong go-between between us and the community members. They started meeting monthly. and really figuring out what their priorities were, what their community needs were, what they wanted to see happening. And so and with the STEP grant, it's one of the many tools we thought that we can help, especially with transportation projects, to help bridge the access gaps that are in this community. The insecurities with getting to a job safely, get either by walking or through public transportation or other kind of arrangements. So in our STEP, and ILG has really been keeping us organized to get this application ready. So some of the community, and just getting to the community engagement part, we chose not to do a virtual engagement because there was already so much that Arlena and this group did, because they were already set up and organized. We wanted to just kind of use what they've already done and use their outreach that they do with each other. So we've just developed a survey. We did interviews, just key interviews with key community leaders and stakeholders. And then I think there's already one of the community members is doing a youth art project too, to try to get. So I'll let Arlena kind of speak to that a little bit, if she can unmute herself.
Thank you, Cecilia. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
So I think one of the key things here is when you're working with a resident where there are a lot of disparities, you want to be very sensitive on how you bring in new information. And so really having an opportunity to partner with the city and having Cecilia believe in our organization and the work that we've done is instrumental in the ability to engage the way that we have been able to engage. There are a few things that are critically important in engagement during this time and before, when we can go and kind of touch and hug on each other. Inclusion, the way that you communicate, trust, collaboration, and storytelling. And so those are things that we have utilized to continue the engagement during COVID, okay? With inclusion, we partner with multiple small organizations that are boots on the ground doing the work. So they're able to bring a little bit of what they're able to do, and collectively, we could do a lot. Because one organization is not going to be able to get it all right. So if we partner, or you partner, as we have, with multiple organizations, then they become ambassadors of whatever movement you're trying to move, and they communicate with their audience in a way that they get, because they have already established trust. Anytime you're going into a community that has, high level disparities, trust is the first thing you have to build. And that could take about, 12 months to 18 months to really start establishing that trust. And we have did that through telling stories through the media, not to say, look at what we've done, but to be able to share stories of what we're doing in the community by addressing the disparities during our engagement. And one of the highways that we have been able to really start building that trust for engagement, it's through partnering with one of the local organizations that have been doing food giveaway for more than 30 years. But they've been able to do it on a very mom and pop level. We're in an area that's a food desert, so we know there's a food insecurity. So we partner with them in Cap K to be able to give away food every month. So we're addressing a need. We were one of the first organizations to do a drive-through food giveaway in Kern County. They pull up, we load the food, they keep it moving. However, we tell stories through the media. So we start building trust by storytelling while addressing a need. That's one way. You definitely want to partner with organizations that are already boots on the ground doing this great work. But we've been able to take it to a level that the small organizations were not able to take. So instead of them giving away 100 food boxes, we typically give away 350 to 550 food boxes each time we're doing a food giveaway. Well, that's word storytelling. We invite some of the elected officials that are addressed, that's their area, because obviously the media is going to be attracted when elected officials are out there. So we're able to leverage our storytelling to start building the engagement. So when we need to ask our community to respond, they're familiar with who we are. That's step one, trust building. The inclusion is, being able to get the key stakeholders in that community who they already trust to partner with us. So our voice is very familiar when we speak, and then we have a response that is a little bit higher than if we went into this community trying to do this work alone. And that also builds collaboration. Anytime someone feels a part of something, they're going to activate. So when we send out, for example, as Cecilia said, we're working through these surveys with ILG. When we send this out to our community partners and then they send that out on our behalf, well, that voice is already trusted. That is a critical way to engage and to be able to leverage the voices that are coming to the table to care about the work that has to be done. And then again, we turn around, we tell great stories. We utilize social media a lot to share what we're doing. People buy in. What feels like you are successful, whether you're moving one rock or 50 rocks, people will buy into whatever that is that you're telling. So we utilize social media a lot for our engagement. We encourage people to go to our websites and to register their emails. So when we need to communicate with them, they've already given us access to them. During COVID, obviously, in the communities that we're serving, it's critically important to have different ways that you can communicate. Social media, email blasts. We do a lot of text communication with those who we've, accessed or, have gotten permission to be able to text them. But we also have what we call soldiers or ambassadors on the ground who are okay being out in COVID. And so we give them messages that they take out to their community. And so we just consistently build different levels of trust, because that's the first thing. If you're going into these communities where they have been failed so many times, you're just another person coming to community giving them false hope. So with the layers that we are able to build, and it's critically important in the engagement, we have small wins. Our food insecurity program is a small win. Being able to have the art program, as Cecilia talked, we're getting our children involved. That's a small win. And then we turn around and tell stories about the work that we're doing. So, obviously in the community that we're working with in partnership with the City of Bakersfield and ILG, it's a high Spanish speaking community. Even though our organization target very specifically reaching the African American community, because this community has not had a voice, has been underrepresented, we feel it's critically important to be very specific. We also feel it's important for us to partner with other organizations that have a very specific voice. And so we're working right now with the Dolores Huerta Foundation to reach the Spanish speaking market. We partner with CAPK to reach the Spanish speaking audience. So I said everything that I said. Collaboration is critically important. Storytelling is critically important. Building trust by addressing insecurities that you can is critically important. And that's how I think during these times, you can leverage your work to be able to do greater work. And I could keep talking, but I'll stop there. And Cecilia, unless you have more you want to add.
No, you can just see why she's so awesome. I just love you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
No, thank you both for sharing your experience and some of those tips. I think that's really important. The trust building, the working with your community partners as trusted ambassadors, all of that is great information to be sharing with our booth communities, and both in the regular engagement world and even more importantly, I think right now in this new virtual environment. So I definitely want to get us moved into, we're going to go into some breakout groups, but we're going to break up Cecilia and Arlena. So if you have questions for them, hopefully we can address those in the breakout groups. So Hannah's going to give us some protocols here as we move everybody into those breakout groups. Hannah?
Okay, great. We're going to move into 3 breakout groups. Once we're in the groups, let's do a quick round of introduction, just one word, name, organization. The idea is to do a peer learning and hear from each other, from our booth participants and guests. And we're going to share your experience doing innovative digital engagement, anything that's working for your organization since March. we're gonna skip the report out because we're running out of time, but what we're gonna do, each group will have one of us in the group, and we're gonna take notes. We're gonna take notes of what you guys shared, and we're gonna follow up with this note so that you know what other groups talk about. And we already started demonstrating how to use reactions when you support or agree with something. So use reactions, and I'm gonna check in with my colleague Nicole to make sure that groups are ready. And once you see a little screen popping on your little window popping on your screen, please accept your group. Please click join. It's very important. And again, the question that we're going to be discussing: what innovative approaches are you using to engage your community?
All right, I'm ready to break everyone up into groups, and we'll come back in about 15 minutes. Is that right, Hannah?
Yes.
Okay.
About 12 to 15 minutes, yes.
Okay, I'll open up the rooms. And please click to join your breakout room. Hi, Adam, if you can hear me, I'm going to assign you to a breakout group, and you'll want to click join when you see that pop up. You should be having something pop up that says join Team Carly for the breakout group.
One for
session is
participating in
going
virtual.
Let me go
And we're
back to
back.
the.
Magic.
Welcome back, everybody. Sorry we didn't have more time. I know my group got cut off a little bit talking about some of the opportunities to engage your communities of concerns. So hopefully we'll have more time to talk through that either offline, or we're happy to facilitate connections between you all to get answers to your questions and get some of those tips, talk through a little bit more. As Hannah mentioned, instead of doing a standard report out like we would usually do with these types of breakout sessions, your Boost team member that was in the breakout groups was taking notes, and we will go ahead and get those cleaned up and share them out with all of you to talk to share some of the ideas and ways that you all are approaching this issue. We definitely want to get to a few tips for you all. As we saw up front, we're doing a lot of digital meetings right now, and so Hannah and I are just going to share some really quick tips on how you might want to think about designing these virtual meetings. So first up, this is something that we also share for in-person meetings, but try to keep your quote lectures to less than 10 minutes. Particularly, I think in this virtual environment, is really helpful to break up any kind of lecture pieces with other opportunities, whether that's discussions or polling, or other exercises for your participants to keep them interested and engaged.
Yes, the second one is for those who attended our Peers Public Engagement Learning Lab, we talk about different learning styles and understanding that people learn differently, and it's important to know that when we design our meetings. The same applies for virtual meetings. Some of them tend to be very lecture heavy. For those people who are auditory learning, who are learning by hearing things. But when we do quick polling of you, we see that less people actually learn this way. More people learn via visuals, via reading and writing, and via doing things, tactile learners. So when you design your meetings, minimize the lecture and figure out, provide more visuals, have people do individual reading and writing, even in these meetings as possible, do breakout groups, have people talk. So we kind of demonstrating different techniques in this meeting.
Yeah, so related explicitly to what Hannah just said, think about the use of visuals in your meetings, whether that's a PowerPoint, whether that's other handout materials or infographics or things you're sharing with your participants either before or after the meeting, but just to take into account how different people consume information and to keep things a little bit more visually interesting.
Integrate in your meeting design an opportunity for your participants to speak, even if it's just one or two people who can tell their story from their experience, and all of us can hear and relate. So it's not just, you know, the city talking, the organization talking. Today we had excellent guest speakers, and we introduced different voices, and I think it went very well.
So again, related to that, ensuring multiple voices are heard. So obviously this is something Hannah and I are modeling right now, but we've also done in other venues during this meeting, having the Boost community share their stories, doing the breakout groups. We've all sat in those meetings where somebody is having a very long presentation and eventually they just start to sound like the teacher from Charlie Brown, and you kind of tune it out. So keeping multiple voices going can definitely keep your participants a little bit more engaged.
In every digital public meeting, people will have a lot of questions. We know that. Chatbox is a beautiful tool where if you don't have an answer for all the verbal questions, you can use the chat box and answer in the chat box or follow up with answers. It's very important to provide this opportunity for people to participate via chat box and ask questions. So definitely figure out how you're doing this. There are a variety of ways to do that. Sometimes, you know, with 200 people at the meeting, there can be a lot of questions. So a lot of planning goes into this meeting design to make sure people have an opportunity to ask questions, and you can answer that in the moment or as a follow-up.
Another thing to consider is asking softball opening questions. So similar to what we did at the beginning of meeting tips, where we were asking you about how much coffee you've drank, or the question we asked up front about how you're feeling today. Softball questions can help put your participants at ease, make them a little bit more comfortable either with the technology that you're using, if it's a polling software or something that might be new to them, or just to get them more comfortable with the other meeting participants and the facilitator. It kind of humanizes, you can help humanize the technology by asking some of these kind of softball questions up front.
Okay, next one is the parking lot. Use your reaction if you're still with us. Use your reaction and give me a thumb up if you know what parking lot means in the public meetings world. Okay, I only see thumbs up from ILGers, my colleagues. Okay, one from Cecilia. Okay, so folks, parking lot, it's when you have a discussion and people ask you questions or make comments that are not really related to the discussion, but you still want to acknowledge that you've heard people. You use in the in-person meeting a blank piece of paper where you say, hey, all these other ideas that are not related to the discussion, we're going to write on this paper. You can do the same in online meetings. Say, hey, there's a designated person who's taking notes, and he's taking this parking lot ideas and suggestions and notes, and in this way you demonstrate that you hear your participants. It's still the case for the digital public meetings.
And then we're going to quickly just share some kind of pros and cons of some of these platforms. This is obviously not an exhaustive list. Others like Skype and Uber Conference were mentioned earlier today, but these are the three we are seeing most frequently for online meetings. So Hannah, some tips on Zoom.
Yes, if the goal of your public meeting is to really engage in a two-way dialogue and solicit feedback, input from your community, use Zoom. It has the most interactive features. It has reactions, it has instant polling, it has small breakout groups that were demonstrated. It has translation button that you don't see it right now, but you can activate it in your features for simultaneous translations. Definitely the most interactive platform.
So quickly on the other two here, Microsoft Teams has a lot of the same functionality as Zoom in terms of breakout groups and things like that. It's also a video conferencing. I don't know actually off the top of my head if it has the same translation feature, but that's definitely one of the pluses of Zoom as you're thinking about engaging with different components of your community that may be English language learners. On the GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting platform, we found this one most useful if for really, really large meetings, if you've got hundreds of participants and you need to make sure that they stay muted. This one gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of kind of locking down, for lack of a better word, your meeting attendees. You can keep them all muted, only have them submit questions or comments through the chat or question function, but still allows for the screen share and the video opportunity and the polling piece. So this is something we use for more standard kind of webinar format, definitely less discussion-based, less two-way communication though. So kind of the key takeaway here is to really be considering what your needs are, what feedback are you trying to solicit? Are you really just putting information out or trying to encourage that two-way dialogue? Do you need the interpretation feature? Do you want to use polling? So really thinking through the components that you really want and need for your meeting, and then making sure that your software choice matches that. And something that came up a couple of times, and that's a good plug just for any of these platforms that you're using, is upfront when you're opening the meeting to go through some of the logistical features. How do you ask a question? How do you mute or unmute yourself? Which functionality are you using? Do you want people to raise their hand? Do you want them to just type in questions? So just making sure you're going over some of the logistical pieces of how people participate to address some of those digital divide issues. So there's so much more we could cover here. ILG is doing an 1.5-hour long webinar next week on this topic, so we're going to be sharing more information about some of these pieces in terms of the actual tools you can use and some of the other pieces. So if you're interested in that, it's next Wednesday at 11 a.m. and that's the link on the screen there to register. So we definitely invite you to join us there. A few more resources to share with you if you're more of a visual learner and want to read information. We have a whole toolkit dedicated to housing and public engagement. As Hannah mentioned, we have a framework called Tiers that really helps embed public engagement into your operations. A lot of information on language access. And so we encourage you to go to the website and check out some of these resources if you want more tips or information. And then feel free to obviously reach out to us as needed. We have one more polling question for you guys, if you'll humor us, just in terms of what types of training or resources would be most helpful to you. So is it more kind of peer learning conversations like this, where we maybe build out the discussion a little bit more? Are you looking for more individual assistance from us as your team, as your Boost team, written resources, more webinar-based training, or something else? So if it's something else, please type in the chat box anything that you, anything we missed here that you might want to see.
Engaging you for one more minute before we let you go. And demonstrating various polling tools that you can incorporate into your meeting design to keep your participants engaged and solicit feedback in various ways. Okay, I'm going to share the results with you. This is what you voted. More peer-to-peer conversations and discussions are leading. Good to know. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. On that front, we are hoping to do more of these. We have a couple of topics in mind around energy efficiency and transportation, because that's related to a lot of the projects you all are doing. But if you have other suggestions, feel free to share them with us now via the chat box, or reach out to us individually as your Boost team. As we're developing those, we definitely welcome other topics that would be really helpful for you all. And then quickly, as we close, here's obviously all our contact information as a reminder in case you want to reach out to any of us. But just going to really quickly share some of the different engagement opportunities we did in this meeting to kind of model for you all. We used a couple different polling softwares that are available to you all. We did breakout groups. We used the chat box to solicit feedback and questions from you all. Hannah, what am I missing?
We used breakout groups. We used a popcorn style, changing different voices when Melissa and I went through different tips. We engaged you right at the beginning by asking you to use the chat box and tell us how you feel, kind of bringing this like human side we're all feeling at. Yeah, that's our behind the scenes. We had the whole tech team. Nicole was responsible for making the groups. I was responsible for renaming and muting people. Carla was responsible for the chat box. So we like divided and conquered to ensure that this meeting goes smoothly. Lots of intentional and thoughtful processes.
Perfect. And yes, apologize for not being able to get to more questions today, but we do also want to model closing the meetings when we promise to close meetings. So again, if you've got questions or additional thoughts or comments, please drop them into the chat box now, and we will follow up offline and make sure we get you answers to those questions or connect you with the right resources or people as needed.
And our blueprint, let's call us.
And another big thank you to El Centro and Bakersfield for sharing your stories and your experience on this front. And with that, I will just thank you all and hope you have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. You guys want to stay on the line for a sec? No way. Did we stop recording, Nicole? I think I stopped recording.